Hallo und welcome to the lab course Media Informatics, dem Praktikum Medieninformatik for the summer term 2021. Please bear with me while I say a couple of sentences in German. In diesem Video soll es um ein paar Tools, die sich für den Einsatz im Praktikum eignen, gehen. Und zwar zum einen geht es um eine kurze Einführung in die Grundbegriffe der Versionsverwaltung am Beispiel von Git. Git etwas, was ich euch ans Herz legen würde für den Einsatz im Praktikum. Und dann geht es um ein paar Produktivitätswerkzeuge, Projektmanagement, Projektkoordination, Projektkommunikation etc. Und ich werde in diesem Video auf das Video zum gleichen Kurs aus dem Sommersemester 2020 zurückgreifen, es an ein, zwei Stellen ergänzen und verändern, aber ansonsten das Video aus dem letzten Jahr nochmal benutzen, weil sich an den Tools eigentlich nicht viel geändert hat, gegen die ich damals vorgestellt habe. Und ich denke, es ist sinnvoller, das Video schnell euch bereitstellen zu können, als jetzt, dass ich jetzt extra das nochmal auf Deutsch aufnehme und dann vielleicht das erstmal ein paar Tage später kommt. Back to English. These slides, this video talk about some tools which I recommend for use in the lab course, in the practicum. On the one hand, we are talking about the version control system Git. And on the other hand, we talk about some productivity tools. This video is basically the same as the video I did last year for the same course, because the tools didn't really change that much, and I just have 2 or 3 additions to make for that, edits to make in the whole video. So I thought it would be better to just get it out quickly with the old content than to have to redo the whole video. Now, the video is basically in 2 parts. The first part is about Git, the version control system, and the second part is about productivity tools. So just bear that in mind. Continuing talk about productivity tools. We have talked in the last video about version control. You probably want some kind of ticketing, so you can track problems which have been encountered, and the basic version which is included with the different hosting services I've been talking about is probably adequate for what you need in the lab course. You probably also want some kind of milestone. Some kind of milestones. Sometimes you can use the services for that as well, but that's where I would start recommending looking at different tools. The documentation, now you can use the wikis, which are basically included with options like GitLab and GitHub and Bitbucket, and use that to start writing your documentation. It's always a good idea to start writing the documentation at the beginning of the project, so that you don't end up with having to write a lot of documentation at the end, and probably you don't even remember all of the things you've done, and all the you don't remember how different decisions came into being. So that would, my recommendation is always, it doesn't matter whether you're writing a thesis or whether you're working on a project, start documenting what you're doing when you're doing it, basically. You can also use LaTeX for your documentation. I'll make a template available for the documentation on the Krivi.de website, and it's very easy to use LaTeX with Git, because basically you just have text files like source code files, and so you can use the same or a second Git repository to work on your documentation. Or if you don't want to do that, you instead of sending around Word documents or LibreOffice documents and working locally, I always recommend to use collaborative editors instead, because else you might end up with divergent files. You also possibly want to invest in some tools for communication and coordination, which are more than WhatsApp and Facebook and more than Dropbox. I will be talking about it a bit. And you might also want to include some automation. So, for example, you can have set up your systems in a way that whenever something happens in the repository, other stuff is triggered, like a text sent to a chat program or some continuous integration test or things like that. So let's start with the ticketing and project planning. As I said, the Git hosted services usually come with some kind of ticketing. You can do some kind of project planning with that by assigning tickets to specific persons. These tickets then have specific tasks which have to be done, and you can also track the progress of these tickets, and you can comment on what has happened in these different tickets. The advantage is that you use the same tool and you use the same tool chain, so you don't have to switch between different tools, which is always something I recommend. But the disadvantage, of course, it's not very flexible. So if you want more of an integrated solution, you can also go for something like Redmine. Redmine is a very powerful integrated system for project management, time management. You can actually use it in order to track the time different people have worked on the project. You can have your own Redmine server, which comes with Git, which also offers you Git repositories. It has lots of options. It's very expandable. But it's also quite a beast. So you can download it. It's an open source software. You can download it and host your own Redmine server. It's based on Ruby on Rails, which was a framework which was very popular a while ago. An alternative to which with very similar set of features would be the Python-based Track. Both offer you a lot of project management features with an added option to also use it as your own Git server. Now, if you say, okay, I'm fine with using GitLab for Git and the ticketing system, but I still want to have more project management capabilities, you can of course go to other systems which are available. One of the things is Trello. Trello is also part of the Atlassian family. So Trello, it gives you some Kanban inspired task management system. So the idea behind, it's very simplified. All of this is very simplified in this whole lecture, so to speak. But the basic idea behind all the Kanban systems is that you have tasks which needs to be done in one group, and then you have the next group tasks you are working on, and tasks which are completed. So you pick the tasks. You try to have a limited amount of tasks you're working on in parallel, and the moment you have completed a task, you transfer it to the completed list and pick a new one from the list of tasks which needs to be done. Trello offers some kind of offers free accounts. It's a freemium model again that you have to pay money for specific features, specific team groups, etc. But also the free, already the free version offers some nice options to work in teams. If you're not too happy with hosted solutions and you want to have your own Kanban style server project management software on your own server, then I would recommend to go with Tiger.io. It can be used in different ways. One is the Kanban style, or the other is the what they call the agile task management style. It can be used hosted again as Trello, but you can also, since it's a core and open source and free software system, you can also download it and install it yourself. If you're not too happy with all these Kanban ideas and prefer traditional task management, then Asana might be something to look into. It's also a freemium model. we have been using it in different projects. It works quite well in Teams. So what do we have? We have different project management software with different philosophies, be it Kanban, being it more traditional to-do lists. They have all of these tools are powerful, which is both an advantage and a disadvantage. The disadvantage being that it might be a bit overwhelming if you're new to this kind of project management. So let's talk a bit about documentation. Now, as I said before, you can just use Git, which you probably already use for your project because it works well with text files. And if you use something like Markdown or LaTeX to write your documentation, that is totally fine. So the disadvantage of using Git, of course, is that assets such as pictures are not handled very well. And if you use LaTeX and you want to check for changes somebody made, that's not trivial, although you can use something like LaTeX diff, which makes it a bit more manageable. So the advantage of using Git with LaTeX is that you get a professional typesetting with LaTeX, and you have the same toolchain for the development of the artifact and the development of the documentation. A nice asset with LaTeX is also that you can use collaborative LaTeX editors like Overleaf. So you can use Overleaf like you would use any hosted documentation system, hosted document writing system. You have a system where you will log into, where you have an account, and where you can share documents with other people. And you write your LaTeX code in a web-based editor, and you can compile it and look at it immediately on Overleaf. And I think with Overleaf is also that it gives you the option to also download the files you have been changing using Git, and pushing your local changes back to Overleaf. So what you actually get is kind of a Git server which you can use just like any other Git server for pushing and pulling your LaTeX documentation, but with the added benefit that you can also use a web user interface to writing and changing the documentation. And Overleaf is also using a freemium model, but in this particular situation, actually they have extended some offers for academic users. And even if you don't do that, the free version should be more than enough for what you need to do in the lab course for the documentation. So one thing is LaTeX has a steep learning curve, but don't be afraid of it. If you want to try it, there are lots of ways to get going. Overleaf has some kind of nice tutorials, so learn LaTeX in 30 minutes is one of them, where you can start using LaTeX pretty quickly. There's other documentation available at Overleaf. There's actually quite a good free book at Wikibooks, very good, very up to date. If you want to invest some money, you can use the LaTeX Companion TLC. That is the standard book on LaTeX, and most questions will be answered there. You can also get documentation starter guides by the C10 project, the Comprehensive Tech Archive Network, which is a distributed network for tech sources, packages, etc. And there are two versions, the L short German and the L short English. Despite the name, they're a bit more divergent than it looks like. So in particular, the German version is slightly outdated. The English version is more up to date, but they cover different things. So it might be worth, if you have not worked with LaTeX before, that might be also worth looking into. If you're using specific packages like the LaTeX Beamer for presentations, like what I'm doing, Tix for making graphics, or the Coma classes, Marcus Combs Coma classes, which are kind of a more European style base classes for books, reports, etc. Then please make sure to check the excellent documentation. All of these mentioned projects come with excellent documentation and will help you get you going. And if you use the LaTeX files as they are provided, the templates as they're provided by Media Informatics, I want to say that I think they are quite good to start. I think they're nicely documented. They explain not only what you're expected to put, what kind of content you have to put in, but also how you achieve the look. And if you have any problems with the templates, just tell me and I will try to update it in a newer version. Or if you're very interested in working with it, you can also work on the LaTeX templates in the Git repository at the GitLab of the university. Now, if you don't want to use LaTeX but still want to use some kind of text format, you can of course use a kind of a wiki style because, as I said before, the different Git project hosts come with pre-packaged wikis. They use a very simple Markdown syntax. Markdown is a very, very simple markup language. The advantage here, again, same tool chain. If you anyway use GitLab for what you are doing for your project management, for your ticketing, for your Git, why not use the wiki there? You can also download it as to edit it locally, because it's basically just another Git repository. You can convert Markdown into lots of other formats. You can make HTML documentation out of it. You can generate PDF often via LaTeX automatically. You can generate files which can be further edited by text processors like LibreOffice. So one of the most powerful, or probably the most powerful, convert anything to anything systems is John McFarlane's Pandoc. You can just throw Markdown on it and you will get, for example, with the correct conversion and the correct Markdown, you get a presentation out of it, or you get an ODF file out of it. Another option would be Fletcher Penny's multi-Markdown. Now you can also use Markdown without using the Git repositories, the Git servers, the Git hosting servers. You can, for example, use Etherpad, the grand old system of collaborative text editors. We have an Etherpad hosting at the university again, so you can use that. It's a collaborative text editor. You can also download it and host it yourself. See, if you are so inclined, it's an open source free software solution. Now, if you are more into maybe a bit sleeker look and feel of something like Overleaf, there is also HackMD or CodeMD, which basically has the same setup. You saw in Overleaf that you're on the one side of the screen. You have your text editor where you can just add the Markdown text. You can see here how simple it really is. You define the headlines like by putting the hash in front of it. Bullet points are just made by having the asterisks here and numbered list. Yeah, so it's very easy to write your documentation. Again, it comes with the renderer here that it looks quite nice, and you can afterwards convert it into use the same. If you use the LaTeX code, you can convert it into LaTeX as well. If you find out that for example, you can use the Markdown version during the project, but when you prepare the final delivery, you just can just use the Markdown you have accumulated so far and convert it into LaTeX and work from LaTeX from then on. HackMD is a freemium service, but the underlying technology is called CodiMD. So you can either use HackMD as a paid or free service, or you can again download the CodiMD engine, which does not have all the features of the HackMD service, but should be working fairly well again in the context of your project. Okay. If you're more into what you see is what you get, as I said, I'm not necessarily a fan of sending Word documents around, etc. It gets too easy that you miss some changes. But if you're more into the what you see is what you get idea, and if you are into that really easy tracking of changes, then you can, for example, of course, use existing services like Google Docs, which offers you all of that, a collaborative online word processor. If you're not into the Google ecosystem that much, you can also use the Microsoft version. Office.com also offers a Word Online. Now, in particular, if you have a license for the Office 365 Office suite, that's a very nice solution as well. You can also use something like Academic Cloud with the editors provided there. Now, if you want to be experimental with some other kinds of knowledge you want to capture, this site Nuclino. Their tagline is easy knowledge base for teams. It includes a collaborative word processor, but it also makes some kind of collaborative features available. So I haven't really used it that much. But I would be very interested in getting your feedback if you start using that. Okay, next aspect after the documentation, let's talk about communication and coordination, because that's also something you want to do in your team. Probably the most used chat software in enterprise teams is Slack. You have teams and you have so-called channels, and you can talk to your teammates in these channels. So Slack is basically more structured than Hangouts. It's less messy than Facebook and simpler to use than IRC. It has many functions and many hooks. So for example, when you commit something to your Git hosting service, that you automatically get a notification in a specific channel. You can use so your Git commit messages show up in your channel. People don't have to look at the Git server or pull the newest Git changes in order to see your commit messages. Even free accounts are already quite powerful. It comes with nice things you would usually expect nowadays, like mentions. So even a channel which you mute, you can get information if somebody is mentioning your name, etc. So it's quite a nice system for in this enterprisey setting. Now, if you're not into using this kind of hosted commercial solution, then Metamouse might be right for you. Metamouse does not only look very similar to Slack, it is kind of an open source Slack clone. they have different functionalities, of course. So it's not only a clone of something existing. It is you can download the open source edition and host it yourself. You can also have licenses for additional features. An alternative which sits in a similar spot, in my opinion, is Rocketjet, also freemium model, so you can use the community edition and you can buy licenses for more features. And Rocketjet also offers the opportunity to use their hosted solution, although I'm not really sure why you would go with Metamouse and or Rocketjet if you can use a Slack, because if I have all these three together, I would probably tend to use Slack if I was going for a hosted solution. There's actually one advantage with using Rocketjet, and that is that the GWDG, the Gesellschaft für wissenschaftliche Datenverarbeitung in Göttingen, has actually set up a Rocketjet server which can be accessed by university members in Lower Saxonia through the academic cloud service, which we have also discussed at the very beginning of the course when we were talking about how to exchange documents, for example. So Rocketjet can be used through the hosted service of GWDG. A very different look and feel, but giving a similar set of features in the sense that you have channels with some very nice added benefits with the use of tags, but at first very... it looks a bit more like the user interface might look a bit dated compared to what you use from Slack or Metamouse or Rocketjet. I still like it. It's a Zulip chat. It's a multi-platform chat. It also has, as do the other servers, has mobile apps you can use. You can use Zulip chat as a hosted service, but you can also download the open source system and host it yourself. And actually, for Media Informatics, we are running my own server here. And if you need this kind of solution for the course, then for your project, then you can get logins for the course for your group. That's no problem. Also, Zulipchat comes with mobile apps, so you can also use it from your Android or iOS device. If you say, okay, I'm already happy with what I have, you can, of course, keep using Telegram. It's a very nice messenger with optional end-to-end encryption, but only for one-to-one chats, not for group chats. So here, for example, you see the... signified by the lock here. You have one channel which is encrypted end-to-end. That's very nice. It comes with a desktop app, Electron-based desktop app, and it has mobile clients as well. It works quite well, in my opinion, and in different it works quite well. So if you are the advantage of Telegram to other systems which also offer encryption is that Telegram probably has a larger user base. From a cryptographic point of view, I would probably recommend Whisper Systems Signal instead, which also comes with end-to-end encryption, which has an open algorithm for encryption, where the founder Moxie Marlinspike is known for his work with encryption and privacy, and the system Whisper Systems, for example, also delivered the cryptographic solutions for WhatsApp. So that's a very nice system. Also, desktop mobile apps are available. You can have group chats. A very, very, very nice system. The only disadvantage basically is that at least the people I know, there are more people using Telegram than Signal. So I have both installed usually, but I tend to use Telegram more. if you are in the Google ecosystem anyway, your Android device probably comes with Hangouts, which supports Messenger, which also supports mobile chats. Now, Hangouts, Google has a really interesting history when it comes to chat clients. So you probably know that it had already different clients on the market, different systems on the market, and basically after a while it disappeared. Hangouts is still there. We don't know how long it will be available for end users, for private end users. It gives you some nice features like video chats and similar. I tend to my own personal experience, I would recommend using Telegram instead, because Hangouts more often than Telegram delays messages for quite a while, for example, and it's in a way I think Telegram is easier to use and quicker to use. Since the future of Hangouts is anyway a bit interesting, you can go to it. But if you want to keep in the Google ecosystem, you can use Google Meet, launched as it has been a business product for quite a while, and Google has changed names here for this product a couple of times, I think. It used to be Hangouts Meet, which was kind of the business solution for that. And the COVID situation has brought forward the plans to make it freely available for personal use, and even without the usual limit of 1 hour for personal communication, free accounts, chats. So you can have longer chats, video chats. It's basically Google, I think, got a bit overrun by the support of Zoom, which is not included in this list because of the interesting history of the company when it comes to privacy security. So if you're anywhere in the Google ecosystem and have a Google account, then you can use Google Meet. And if you want to go with the open source and free software solutions, then there's, for example, Jitsi. Jitsi is based on open standards, WebRTC for real-time communication. It's a platform. It's basically a mixture of different services which you can download and run on your own server, an XMPP server to get the communication going, a video bridge to send video signals between different clients, and you can use Jitsi either on their you can download this the whole system. It's very easy to install it on your own Linux server. If you have a vServer or similar running Debian or Ubuntu, it's basically just adding a couple of repositories and adding a couple of packages and then configuring a little bit. It's very easy to install it. You can also use the provided server at Meet Jitsi. You can just use it with an ordinary browser. I would really recommend using Chrome. It's a bit unfortunate, open web, etc. But the whole system works really best with Google Chrome. You can also download mobile apps for your Android device. They have an Electron-based desktop client. Please be aware if you're looking for desktop client, there is also an older desktop client, Jitsi client, which is using SIP and XMPP, the session initiation protocol, and the extendable message passing and presence protocol. And that does not work with the WebRTC based new Jitsi, so to say. So look at the GitHub page, and at GitHub you'll find actually download links for the Electron based desktop client for Jitsi. As with ZulipChat, we have our own server. We are running our own server. So, and if you need access to that for the course, then you can contact me. But the Jitsi, Meet Jitsi org is actually quite, after an initial rush on the system, is now coping quite well with the load. It is a distributed system, and the nice thing with Jitsi is that if you have one-to-one communications and both clients are actually visible on the net, then your video communication does not even go via the server. Jitsi is backed by a commercial company, 8x8, and you can also use 8x8, the Jitsi system, which is offered by 8x8 on their own website as an alternative. 8x8 also sells hardware, for example, for meeting rooms. I guess that's a bit out of league for this particular course. Now, one other service I have already talked about in the introduction to the course is Gather. Gather Town is a service where you actually can use some avatars and walk around in virtual environments, and which has the look and feel of an 8-bit computer game. And the idea here is that only when you are in close proximity to each other, you can actually see each other and hear each other. So it is kind of a virtual environment which you can use for group work, etc., where you're not for the full time will be in the same constellation, the same group. You can of course also use a service like Big Blue Button and the breakout rooms there, but this has the nice affordances of real world meetings in groups. So I also recommend that for your use. Possibly almost the last thing to do is talk about that sometimes you need to coordinate time slots with your peers, and you should already have done so for the meetings with me, and I recommend using the Foodle instance. That's an open source re-implementation of a similarly named commercial service for picking dates in groups, and the DFN Termin Planner is available for your use, and it's definitely also GDPR compliant, etc. I said, and that's the last point here. I think I said that we were that there are also options to automate specific tasks. So, for example, Git has the ability to fire custom scripts when certain actions occur. There are both client-side hooks and server-side hooks, and most often these are used to for example, run continuous integration services, or to communicate about commits, etc. And this is also offered by, in some way or the other, by the hosted services. You can extend that actually by using external services like if this then that. That's a very interesting service which has hooks with different services, and what they actually have is some kind of trigger at certain services and some kind of action at other services, for example. So the basic idea is that you do something on one service like Twitter, and then something happens at a different services like Evernote. So a similar service for that is Zapier. Zapier has more services, more things you can actually do with it, but it's more limited for free usage. So both services offer free accounts, but if you can basically with if this, then that. You have no limit on what you can do there, but with Zapier, you are limited to the number of rules you can recipes you can use, and how often they are basically triggered. So it is very interesting tool to connect different data sources and data things. So it's very easy, for example, to use if this then that to hook into the Google Home voice assistants, and without really programming, you can write scripts which send mails, for example, to your to-do list based on a keyword, and when that to-do list is set up to accept incoming new tasks by email, then it's very easy to use your voice assistant to add new tasks to your to-do list by voice command. So that's really nice. With very little effort, you can connect different services, different data things, different data sources. The big disadvantage, of course, is that you give third-party services access to accounts on potentially a very large number of services, and sometimes a lot of data. So I personally would not use these services, for example, to do something with my main Google account. But you can, you have to make some kind of risk assessment whether you're willing to do that. And if you are willing to do that, in particular, if you're using accounts and services which you don't use that often, or which you use only for this specific purpose, then it might be worth it. Of course, then integration with Evernote or which is not working on your main account is only of limited use. Okay, so what are my suggestions? I really recommend using some kind of source code management system, and I recommend using Git. I mean, there are other distributed version control systems like Mercurial, but I do recommend Git. I also recommend using one of the hosted services such as GitLab, GitHub, or Bitbucket. I recommend that you do the documentation from the start using a wiki or a LaTeX, basically using Overleaf or using your own Git repository. It's very useful to use tickets to keep track of things which have to be done, and set yourself milestones when you want to achieve certain things. Depending on the team structure, it might be very useful to have some kind of management software. And it's always, in particular in times like this, it's very important to have good communication infrastructure. And I'm not sure whether you really want to do this with solutions like WhatsApp, which probably some of you have already installed, or whether you want to dig into the more project management related features of systems like TulipChat, or if you want to go to the group functionality of systems like Telegram, and when you want to use synchronous audio-video communication like Jitsi. There are a couple of links on these last slides. So again, a couple of Git tutorials, the GUI tools, links to the hosted services, and the project management tools. And you can see, again, a list of the different tools for communication, coordination, automation, and documentation. If you have any questions, please use the forum in LearnWeb for that. I hope this is useful to get you started with your projects in the Media Informatics lab course this term. And yeah. See you next time. Thanks for the attention.